Welcome to Strange Mysterious World, Season 5, Episode 9. Tonight's guest, we have a very different guest. We have what in the mystic tradition, or if you were Sioux tradition, you would like to be called them Heyoka. Heyoka are known as the sacred clowns. So it's a clown. And obviously in the tradition of the Native American tradition, Heyoka is like a spiritual teacher slash healer. Because generally the sacred clowns understand that people need to be healed through, whether it's comedy, whether it's something else being contrary to what's normal. And yeah, so we've got Mango on tonight, and he's going to be giving us his story. So yeah, we're welcome to the strange, mysterious world, Mango.
Thank you very much. Great to be here. Pleasant surprise to meet you. I didn't know it was going to be a three tripartite gathering, but thanks for having me. Yeah, a tripartite alliance. Yeah, so you mentioned Heyoka and all that stuff, and I realized years ago that I impinged on the Heyoka world in my awakening in my own personal way. I haven't been part of any Heyoka groups. I've kind of stuck to myself and I've done my own thing, and my journey has been my own. But my discovery of my inner clown most certainly was a sacred clown journey of my own, through my own spiritual and mystic understanding. And it was me through overcoming my own personal pain and my brokenness. And I definitely became a healer of sorts. I think an energetic healer in transforming the energy around me, specifically when I stepped into that role, you know, as the performing clown. So yeah, I haven't been part. Years ago, I was, part of the whole rainbow movement, and I kind of got out of the whole party and outdoor scene because I was burning the candle at both ends, and I found myself too tired for my responsibilities if I was to join an all-night party. And I had to work and entertain people that same weekend. So I kind of moved away from that whole world and chose to focus on the physical comedy work that I do. Clowning is essentially, it's physical comedy. It's the art of physical comedy. A clown is not the rapping. A clown is not the red nose or the shoes, the funny walk. A clown is an essence, and it's physical comedy. And my discovery of physical comedy was the art of balloon comedy. So I'm a physical balloon comedian is very much the essence of what I do. So any questions?
Journey. Just tell us your journey, Manga. So how did you get into clowning?
Well, my background was in theater. My mother was an actress, and she was a very fearless persona. Well, she came across that way. She didn't seem to be shy at all. She did have a lot of her own personal sadness and pathos underneath it all, but she was quite a fearless performer, and she used to coach me in theater, and I did a lot of amateur theater. Circumstances led me in the 80s to, after a couple of years at university, which I didn't complete, and that's a whole other story and chapter why, to explain why. But in a nutshell, I traveled overseas to Europe, and I backpacked around for about 3 3/4 years, and I rediscovered a tool or a toy called the Chinese yo-yo or Diablo, at the Festival of Avignon, and I took it up again, and I made my way, earning money, traveling around Europe with my Diablo, or Chinese yo-yo, and but then I needed to I felt I needed to be more fun. I was too stiff. I was too held back, and couldn't really entertain as well as I liked. And I took inspiration from watching clowns all over festivals in Europe, and especially at the Avignon Festival and the Bilbao Festival. And I encountered other clowns in Switzerland and in Italy, and I felt this is something that I really, really wanted to do. But I didn't know how. I also watched some jugglers, and I thought, yeah, I'm also going to become a juggler one day, which I did. So I took my inspiration there. I'm trying to wrap this up as concisely as possible. And then I found my way to Israel, because it was easy to work in Israel, even without a work permit. And I traveled, I flew from Turkey over Syria to Jordan, and then I entered I entered Israel from there. I worked as a dishwasher in Jericho, and then on to Jerusalem, down to Eilat, and then back up to Tel Aviv. And then I had a girlfriend in Tel Aviv, Dina from Denmark, and she went one day, and she came back to the backpacks, and she said she's just met an amazing clown. I must come and see him. So I went to watch him perform. He was kind of like a Piro clown, and the one with the teardrop and a rose, very much a mime. He was very much a mime kind of clown, and so he then, all of a sudden, he moved into our backpackers. So we became friends, and then I asked him, well, can you teach me to become a clown? And he said, well, I don't think so. That's a very difficult process. But what I can do is tell you all the steps. Go get your pen and paper and write this down. And he gave me about 7 steps that I had to go through. So I thought, well, this is it. Like, it's up to me now. So I went through those steps, which included like almost whole days of silence, communicating with people around me non-verbal communication, a lot of silence, and then having fun in the mirror. So it was this whole process of self-discovery in the mirror. So I went through this process, and then the finals were put together a concept, a character, and put together an outfit. So the first idea that I had was there was this dressing gown and pajamas that I bought. So my first clown character wore dressing gown and pajamas, and he went out in broad daylight, and I walked around with a torch and a bell. And it was sort of inspired on the concept of Wee Willie Winky running through the town in broad daylight. And I went and I did a first performance in Tel Aviv, walking through the streets of Tel Aviv in a dressing gown and pajamas. And I think some people thought I was crazy, but I didn't care. And someone gave me 1 shekel. I think they felt very sorry for me. I wish I kept that shekel. And so that was, like I explained before, we have this, as adults, we have this body armor, and we take ourselves very seriously. And we're afraid to laugh at ourselves or be laughed at. And this was a process of breaking and entering through that concern about what people thought of us or if they laughed at us. And I used to have a terrible fear, paranoia of being laughed at. I wouldn't go to parties, because if I heard people laughing, I would feel they might be laughing at me. And so I'd overcome that. Anyway, briefly, when I came back to... My name is based on Mungo Jerry, by the way. Mungo Jerry And the pacemakers, an amazing musician, inspired me. I love his music, and my name Mungo is based on him because I just love his music so much. Go check it out, listen to it sometime. And anyhow, I came back to South Africa, and it was pretty hard in 1991. It was pretty hard to find a job. And my mother said, "Well, no sitting around. You better go out and do whatever busking tricks you were doing in Europe." And I didn't know where to go, but I started on St. George's Mall, doing my performances on St. George's Mall, mostly then with the Diablo and some rudimentary clowning. And then two little miracles happened. First of all, a lady called me over and approached me, and she said, "You look like you want to be a clown. Would you like to do an opening for Edgar's?" No, it was Edgar's birthday party or something. So I was hired for 2 hours at 300 Rand an hour, and I thought, wow, fantastic. It was a lot of money back then, and I had to organize myself a costume. I hand stitched a whole patchwork pants by myself. I got a big bag of patches, and I sewed this patchwork together, and I did the gig and got paid. Then I was back out there on St. George's Mall, and the second miracle happened, and an actual clown approached me. I think his wish is that he doesn't be mentioned, and so he asked me, "Well, how would you like to get into the birthday party business? And I teach you a few things." I said, "Sure, yes, please." He took me that same night to the Spur for a meal, and he brought out his balloons, which are long sausage balloons, the type that we use to twist into animals. And he taught me about three or four different balloon animals that night. And so a couple of weeks later, he called me up and said, "Are you ready to do your first birthday party?" So I'd been practicing my balloons a bit, and I'd had a few ideas in my head. I said, "Sure, okay, let's do it." So I got thrown in the deep end. My first show was in Constantianek Forest. It was sponsored by Willard's, and it was a dinosaur, a Rotary was involved, or Lions Club, something like that. And so I had to entertain the kids in the forest, and I blew up my first balloon, and I just saw stars. I just saw stars, and I almost fainted. And then I realized, gosh, I've got 20 or 25 kids in front of me, and I have to do something and be funny. And I just felt all wacky. I sort of felt kind of drunk after blowing up this balloon. They're not easy to blow up. And then I thought, I can't just twist these things into dogs. It's my job to be funny. I have to be funny. So I just instantly, on the spot, tried out all of these comedy ideas that I'd sort of been devising in my head, and put them into practice, and it worked, and I had the kids in hysterics. So the first show was a success. I was thrown in the deep end, and I blew up 25 balloon animals by mouth. So that was my very first clown gig in Cape Town. And then soon after that, he started just sending me out. And then at the same time, I started practicing my juggling and polishing my yo-yo show. And then I met other magicians, which came into his agency office, and they taught me a few tricks. Then I went off to the College of Magic, and I bought a magic trick. So now I was, in a short time, I had found balloon animals, juggling, Chinese yo-yo, and put together a whole series of tricks. So it was back in 1993. So that's about 23 or 24 years, I guess. And I've kept my sexuality in birth parties, but I've entered in all kinds of situations.
So, Mungo, tell us what's your philosophy about clowning?
I think my clowning philosophy is actually the same as my poetry and art philosophy, and that a clown is essentially the artist, and the clown is a mirror for the folly of mankind, because we are all fallible and we are all children. We all have to make fools of ourselves somehow to learn our lessons in the process of our lives, and so the world sees the clown as a fool character, but usually the clown isn't a fool at all. But his role is to show the world their own foolishness, but with the end of not mocking people, but to help them to laugh at themselves.
And
Yeah,
the clown is
sure.
there to kind of heal in that way, to make you feel, actually the life is not so bad, and to laugh at yourself. So it's very powerful. In American Indian stuff, the Heyoka is a very, very powerful spirit. But generally, Heyoka have dreams of thunder beings. So there's actually two very well-known Heyokas in the Sioux tradition, which was Black Elk and Crazy Horse. Crazy Horse was one of the leaders, and Black Elk came a little bit. Black Elk was quite recent, actually, and it's very, very strong medicine with these guys. So it's quite important. But for me, I want to know why it actually got to a point where people got afraid. So yes, I understand. Like you had movies like It, and I understand that you had all these horror movies where clowns like what's his name? Or Gacy landed up being a freaking clown, and he was a mass murderer. So I
Yeah.
understand there's that fear. I want to know where that came from, because I mean, I don't like clowns, dude. The clowns
Yeah,
that
they're
we
pretty
see them,
scary. Yeah.
they
Didn't they
are.
come from the DMT realm? I heard they came. That's where
Well, look,
the
the clowns that we
iconography
see
or
them
whatever the
today, I don't know, the big nose and that, I don't know where that comes from. But in the past, it was, they were dressed up, they would wear things backwards, they would wear a t-shirt backwards, and they'd
yeah,
walk
because even
backwards.
those Indian geez, how's that's right. The Native Americans rode into the battle backwards, and the clowns with the
Yeah,
Heyoka. What are they called? The Heyoka.
Ioka. Yeah, that's so that was
Yeah.
kind of normal. And they were deemed very, very powerful by their tribe. It was like they were there, guided by the spirits to show people and to teach lessons. So they were like very, very powerful. They were shaman. They were actually shaman. So as much as they were clowns, they were also shaman. So it wasn't
Yeah,
just the
and
fact of
also
being funny in it. It was they were teachers.
yeah, that's right. And I mean, Mango was telling me that they would actually mock people in the tribe that had wrong personality traits or doing something wrong or whatever, and then but they would mock it in a way that it was very like over the top and backwards and kind of like to show them like, look, you actually just been ridiculous, and to teach them a lesson to so they would fall into line. And he said they would do it so much that the person would actually like break down into tears and realize like how stupid he had been with his behavior. He thinks so great of himself or whatever. Like a humbling experience, you know?
Hmm.
Okay, let's see if Mongo's back on here.
Okay, so let's get back. So why are people scared of clouds?
Okay, in a nutshell, a few reasons. There are no clowns, there are only people. People try to be clowns because they think it's going to make them money. People are assholes and don't have any training or don't have any human sensitivity skills. They dress up in bright colors, which is interpreted as being poisonous. If you're a little child and you see something brightly dressed that approaches you too rapidly, you're going to think it's going to eat you. and you will naturally be scared. That's why a clown needs to know how to make themselves small and not be fearless. I've been hired about 3 times by the Baby Expo, and not one baby cried. So there's and that requires some intuition and some empathy and to realize how you will come across to other people. So what I do is when I enter in a performance, I start out by me being scared of the children. I have to be scared of the children, and then they find that hilarious that I'm scared of them. And that's a way of breaking the ice. And then, of course, there's that bastard, Stephen King, who got rid. That
Pennywise.
bastard, yes, who created Pennywise. And he became a millionaire off of making children scared of
clowns.
To bring us imagination and wonder. That's what we do. We bring imagination and wonder. And so, yeah, I've never had any complaints from any parents in all these years about anyone being scared of me. Usually it will be at an outdoor, like, community festival, when some girls will come up to me and say, "Hey, our friend is scared of you. Don't you want to go scare her?" And
So I'm assuming
that can be quite fun.
I'm assuming, Manga, you have to have some sort of you have to be some sort of empath. You're gonna have to be able to pick up, because I'm assuming you might have some sort of skit prepared, and then you'll pick up on the crowd whether it's working or not, and then you might have to change it as you feel what's going on for the crowd. So I'm assuming you'd have to have that as a
you have to read the room. You have to read the vibes, and you have to pick up on where people are at. Sometimes people have their small little, like, 1-year-olds they bring in, and the 1-year-olds might cry. But I usually make a point of getting all the 3, 4, and 5s laughing. That's why I recommend kids 3 and up. I'm best with kids age 3 and up. The under 3s can be, or they don't understand. All they see is the bright colors, and that's and then if one bursts into tears, another one will burst into tears, and you'll have a pandemonium of crying children. So I just tell them, if any
has that ever happened to
crying,
you?
please. It's happened. That has
pandemic.
Pandemic.
Well, then do you just reverse out and just like send a text message like, "Don't worry, you don't have to pay me for the day"?
No, just change the story.
No, they still have to pay me. I just say, "Yep, please take those kids out. They're too small. They don't understand," and then everything comes back to normal.
Okay.
So yeah, my best age groups are from 4 up.
But I guess the Manga. Tell us about the Native American shaman clowns.
Okay, so the deepest roots of clowning go back to all of the indigenous shamanic people. Best epitomized amongst the Native Americans, the Native American Indians, whose sacred fools, sacred clowns, were medicine men and healers in the tribe, and they were leaders. They were wise men, and they were warriors as well. They also happened to be military. They were warriors, and but within their own tribe, they performed the function of being mirrors in their society, to show people to themselves, to hold up a mirror, as it were. to the haughty, to those who took themselves too seriously, to those who thought that they were important, you know. And you'll notice that many clowns today make fun of the powerful. And so, yeah, many great comedians and clowns today always make fun of political figures. Hence the Jester and the King. So, yeah, they would kind of pick on and make fun of, in a way, ultimately to be kind, ultimately to help that person, bring them down a notch or two, until eventually that person could say, oh, okay, what the heck, and laugh at themselves and not be a prick. So that's the best I can sort of explain it. I hope that made sense.
Yeah, cool. So Will was telling me that there was quite an amazing story with you.
The way you say what you learned from it, and that was very inspiring and remarkable. Would you be willing to share that story of when you got attacked?
Oh, yes. Are you asking about my physical attack?
Yeah.
One day, after my mom died and the house became mine, a guy knocked on my gate and asked if I had any work. Now, I'd bought paint to paint the house, and I had gardening to do, but I loved doing that myself, and I enjoyed painting myself, so I didn't really have any need for. So, but out of like empathy, it was like, okay, I can give you a job, but I can't pay you a lot. I can pay you like $80 a day for a few hours, you know. And so he came and did some gardening, and then got into painting. And then then it got weird. Then after I paid him, he'd come back and say, hey, sir, I was like walking home and these gangsters robbed me of all of my money, you know. And I knew it was a bullshit story. I know he was just trying to play me. And I was like, well, sorry, you've got to, you know, that's your responsibility. I can't pay you twice. You know, I can't pay, I can pay you each time you work, but I can't, you know, you must hide your money in your shoe or something. But actually, I could tell he was just bullshitting me, trying to manipulate me. Anyway, one day he knocked on the gate, and I was very, how can I say, groggy that day. I just woken up, and there was a knock at the gate. He said, oh, you told me I must come work today. And I was like, did I? Not sure about that, but okay, you say so. He came in, so I told him what I needed to do in the garden. Offered him some tea and some breakfast. He said, no, he'll eat later. He'll have a cup of tea. And then he got to work in the garden. And I went inside and I left the security gate open, and I went to sit down and write at the desk, and then he came in. So crept up behind me, knocked me over the head with the handle of the pitchfork, which didn't knock me unconscious. And I got up and I turned around, and I found myself in a situation where I was fighting for my life. And he was stabbing me with this pitchfork. Now, fortunately, in the movies, it looks like, wow, a pitchfork's a deadly thing. Unless it is really being super, super sharpened, it's not going to penetrate deeply. It's very difficult to actually be stabbed by a pitchfork in real life. Anyway, this thing bounced off my breastbone. He was trying to stab me, and it just didn't go in. And then I was fighting with him for a few minutes, like this life and death struggle. Somehow, in the midst of this, I said to him, listen, whatever you want, let's put this thing down. Let's just put this thing out of the way, and you take what you want. And somehow I got through to him, and he said, okay, you go sit down there and don't move. Otherwise, I'll pick up the pitchfork again. He went through to the kitchen, and he came through with my coffee mug, tall coffee, blue coffee mug, which was filled with a black liquid, which I thought, I don't know, that might be Coca-Cola, that might be black coffee, I don't know. And then he said in Afrikaans, jammer dat ek jou seer gemaak het, hier is 'n painkiller sal jou beter laat voel. Sorry that I had to hurt you, this is a painkiller will make you feel better. And he handed this to me, expecting me to drink it. And it came close to me, and I just instinctively thought no, and I handed it back to him. At that point, he just grabbed it and he threw it for my face. And it was battery acid. So I blocked instinctively with my right arm like this. If you can see the skin there, that arm took the acid burn. You can see the scars. I would have a face like it now. I would be like a monster if that battery acid hit my face. So my arm took it. And yeah, I went
Some of your face took it over there on your...
Just a little bit. Just a little slight scar. A little bit dribbled down here.
And also where it hit you on the head, where they hit you, geez, look at that, where you got hit on the head.
Yeah, so the battery acid actually went into that wound and was eating its way down to my brain. It was attempting to penetrate my brain. So I had to have an operation there, and it had to be washed out. And anyway, the guy ducked. I thought he took the keys, he took my DVD player, and there was about $250 sitting on the side, and he left quickly with that. And then I called the neighbors. I was taken to Tygerberg Hospital, and I spent about 2.5 weeks in the burns ward at Tygerberg Hospital. And then after an operation, I woke up and I was in tremendous pain, and I wanted a cigarette. I was marching down the passageway and to the fruit cellar. Because there was the fruit seller sold cigarettes as well, and I bought some cigarettes, and there's a newspaper guy there as well. So I bought a newspaper and I was smoking, and I bought a couple of bananas, and I was sitting there and I heard a woman's voice, and I looked up, and it was a colored woman, and I recognized her voice and I recognized her face, but it took me a short while to figure out where from. And she said, "Hello, Mark," and she had a little girl with her. And she said, "Yeah, you gave me a job that day." And then she said, "What happened to you?" And I said, "Well, this guy, Michael, who was working in the garden and whatever, he attacked me." And she said, "Michael? His name's not Michael, it's a real one." And I said, "How do you know?"
And how did she know who you were talking about?
Because she was there the same day when he was working. I gave her a job on one of the same days when he was working, and she said she was neighbors to his parents, and she watched him grow up from a little boy, so she knew exactly who he was.
Sure.
And so she gave all that information over. The information was passed on to the cops. She gave the cops his parents' address and his sister's address, and a few weeks later they caught him. So that was divine providence, that we got justice.
Jeez, huh? So how did you come out of that, Manga? What did you learn? Manga?
Well, yeah, guys, from around listening. Sorry, man, the audio and video from Manga's side was a little bit off tonight. Digitally, not great. Apologize for that. We did lose him in the last section there, but kind of got the idea about the sacred clown and the reasons why we actually have clowns in the world to keep us happy and make us laugh about ourselves, man. I think that's the most important thing. Just laugh. I mean, check what we're going through now. I mean, the shit that's going on overseas now with Iran and USA and everybody's bombing everybody. We actually need to start laughing about ourselves and, our situations, because it's becoming serious.
But he was telling me about how the whole healing experience, like when he came through from that hospital thing, Manga, and like how he just lived life to the fullest after that, and he forgave that guy, like even when they he was just saying that he completely he forgave the guy. He didn't want to carry on with the prosecution or something, and he yeah, I just wish he was here to tell the story because there was some remarkable healing that took place. And I mean, yeah, you would think someone would be so traumatized after that, but it sounded like it really changed his life around. But anyway, so sorry he wasn't there to tell us the end bit, but yeah, hope you guys enjoyed it.
Yeah, guys, girls, thank you again for listening, and we will spot you next week.
All right,
Cool.
Cheers,
Thanks,
guys.
everybody.
Cheers, Lee.
Cheers,
Thanks,
buddy.
Dan. Cheers, everybody.
Cheers, bud.